Hi, my name's Rachel Andrews. Welcome to Everyday Athlete. On this week's video, we're talking about cold shock. Sadly, it's something that we hear about quite often at this time of year, as young people are released from schools and they have plenty of time on their hands and the weather's heating up. The temptation to get in for a swim is huge. Now, cold shock is the danger that we don't often hear spoken about, or not loudly enough. According to the National Water Safety Forum, around about 400 people a year drown in the UK, of which 44% never even intended getting wet. So understanding about cold shock is something that's absolutely crucial for everyone, no matter whether they are someone who avidly gets out on the water or goes swimming, or likes to do it on holiday, or just people who like to take a walk by water. Everyone needs to know how to survive cold shock. So let's get into it. Well, I've come down to my local beach, which is gently shelving, albeit in front of Southampton Docks, so there might be a bit of crashing and banging. But I like this beach because it's a nice easy entry, it's very gentle getting in, and there's no risk of me suddenly getting out of my depth. And that's going to be key to the cold shock bit that I'm going to talk about in a moment. So I'm heading into the water, just easing in. It's a lot cooler. As soon as I step in, I can feel that. A lot cooler than the air temperature, which if I'd have jumped in would definitely have been a surprise. So what we're thinking about here is that your skin is the biggest organ of your body, and I'm literally exposing almost all of mine to the cold water as I get in. By going in gently, I've got a chance to start to acclimatise, and it seems that actually your bottom half is slightly less sensitive to it than your top half. So I've got to about waist deep, and I'm going to gently get in, and even that takes my breath a little bit. Now, if I wasn't used to getting in and I was to get in suddenly exposing all of my skin to the water, what's happening there is that the cold water initiates a response on my skin, and the capillaries start to close on the skin surface, which then makes it harder for blood to pass around. And also then my heart rate's going up, and I could easily have an involuntary gasp, a huge gasp of air, and everything going on can feel pretty discombobulating and quite panicky, meaning that you then start to make big movements, pushing your blood pressure up and making everything much more difficult. So if you get into that situation and you're gasping for breath and your heart feels funny, you just can't breathe properly, the best thing to do is just to lie back like a star shape, get your ears in the water, and as the RNLI would say, float to live. With the ears in the water, it brings your legs up and you just rest nice and easy. Gives you a moment to get your airway clear of the water, to breathe, and just to get yourself, once your breathing is stabilised, you can start to think about what to do next. It might be that you want to shout for help, or obviously if we're able to stand up, then that's what we do. So cold shock is the body's initial response to being in cold water, where the skin is suddenly exposed to a whole lot of cold water and your heart rate goes wild, your breathing goes wild. So instead of swimming and trying to get out of the situation super quick, we just need to chill out as hard as that can be by leaning back and just floating, just getting our breathing right, waiting for our heart to calm down, and then we can think about what we're going to do next, which could well be swim back to the side. If we've got a tow float, we're going to cling on to that. But it's all about managing the first 1 to 3 minutes that we're in the water in order to get past that cold shock response. Once we're past that, we can probably swim and we'll be fine. So you can see, if we were to jump into water without having got in beforehand and suddenly expose ourselves to it, then that really exacerbates the problem. And much as it might be good for bravado to be the first one to jump in, and you know, first person to get points for getting in the water, you could also be the first person that gets into danger and gets into difficulties, putting yourself and anyone you're with potentially in danger, as they possibly jump in after you to try and help out and may also find themselves in a similar situation. So falling in the water and having that big response where everything's going crazy gives the potential for a heart attack, even in someone who's fit and healthy. The other thing that could happen is during that huge gasping that we do, we could take on quite a bit of water. It only takes about half a litre of water to initiate the drowning response. So we just need to be really careful of what we're doing when we're getting into cold water. And cold water is pretty much everything in the UK year round. You will find pockets where maybe the water's not so deep, where it might be a little bit warmer, but it certainly isn't warm water in the UK. 15 degrees or less is cold water, and it's unusual for it to be much more than that in many places. Give it a go. Have a little go at that floating. It is surprising that the further back your head goes, with your ears dipped in the water, the better you float and the less you feel like you're fighting the water. Really useful skill to have. Cold shock seems to be like a dreadful secret that just isn't getting passed on, and I've no idea why. I mean, I know no one wants to listen to a know-it-all who says, oh, get in slowly, otherwise it might be dangerous. But actually in this case, that is true. So as far as we possibly can, let's try and push this message out and try to make sure that young people and older people are staying safe around the water so we can all really enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed this week's video, and if you have, give it a like, drop me a comment and click on my face to subscribe, because I'd love to have you along. And I'll see you next time. Bye.